And this is what I'm saying. Like, the people that were critical of this had no idea that this has gone on for years. There have been so many productions and plays in the theater done of the Odyssey, and all of them are different because of these little intricacies. And that's why I said, like, we're missing a lot of culture and refinement in the viewing audience if this is what they're attached to, or if this is why they want to attack this film. I went to see The Odyssey. I had to get a feel for this movie myself, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint. It's epic in its scope. It really captures the idea of the Odyssey that I've read about and taken classes on. It's a great representation. But in the beginning, there was a lot of pushback against the idea of this film in general. Matt Walsh, who we've talked about on the channel before, said Lupita Nyong'o wasn't beautiful enough to play Helen of Troy. And Elon Musk called it a diversity pick. Said, I agree she is beautiful, but casting a black woman to play a white woman in a foundational work of European literature is no more right than casting a white man to play Shaka Zulu. Really? The fact that these people don't understand what The Odyssey is, written by Homer. The Odyssey is a insanely exaggerated and fictionalized retelling of something that could fall into Bronze Age Greece. But for that reason alone, and the many, many adaptations and productions of this film, why would you come away with this needs to be realistically casted or it's a failure? It sounds like sabotage to me. But the Odyssey backlash, we know, was never about the movie. This all started with a trailer back in May of 2026. That was long before anyone had a ticket in hand or reason to have an opinion yet. Christopher Nolan cast Lupita Nyong'o in a dual role. She plays two roles. She plays Helen of Troy and her half-sister Clytemnestra. That single casting choice is what set all of this internet noise off. The Odyssey runs 2 hours and 52 minutes, making it Nolan's second longest film behind Oppenheimer. Inside that runtime, Nyong'o's actual time on screen adds up to a handful of minutes. It's nowhere close to the lead role people just assumed she was playing. She was barely in the movie. But you know, all this tracks with the pattern across the whole cast. Honestly, a lot of the A-list names used to sell this movie turn out to have surprisingly little screen time. Christopher Nolan addressed the controversy directly instead of dodging it. He explained that these conversations happen before people see the film, and they're always irrelevant because nobody having them actually knows what the film is yet. Lupita Nyong'o answered it in a different way, telling Elle it's a mythological story, meaning the character was never locked into one single look to begin with, and that the rest of the cast was also not Greek. The last time I checked, Matt Damon is not Greek. So why was it such a big issue in these few roles that they tried to tank this film for DEI or racial equity? This was never film criticism. It was outrage that showed up months before the product did and never slowed down to catch up with it. That's a pattern we're going to keep seeing with the next big release and the one after that. But all in all, the film was great. It was almost 3 hours, but the 3 hours went by like nobody's business. Like it was action-packed from the beginning to end. There was only a couple of slow moments, but Matt Damon gets to really shine in the second half of the film. You know, the first half is really just hitting these big plot points, you epic scenes that we've all learned about through the Odyssey of Odysseus. This is a tour de force. And if I'm not mistaken, this might be one of the biggest films of Christopher Nolan's history. Of course, he did the Dark Knight trilogy with Batman, but after that, I don't think he's done another movie of this scale, even including last year's Oscar winner, Oppenheimer, which I prefer this much more than Oppenheimer. And there's people that love Oppenheimer. I thought Oppenheimer was kind of hard to get through. I'll have to maybe watch it again. Saw it in the theaters and haven't even tried to watch it on streaming. But this film is something that you could watch and learn something every time you watch it, because it talks about a man's struggle in life to really find true happiness. And does that happiness exist on the conquest of, fighting the Trojan War, or does it happen at home? There's always an idealized version of home you have once you're separated from it that a lot of people have experienced or felt. But I think what this really talks about, Matt Damon's character, Odysseus, is he could have stayed on a beach. No spoilers. I mean, the story is thousands of years old, so I don't think I can really spoil it. Go read the book. But he could have stayed on a beach with Charlize Theron, the beautiful Charlize Theron, eating some type of lotus flower. I think it was a lotus. And forgotten all about his family and attempting to go home. Because what happens is, after the Trojan War, Odysseus has to go home. They have to go home, but the journey home, even after winning the war, shows how much of victory can also be wrapped in a loss. Because he continues to fight against logic of actually standing up for himself and going to where he is loved and where he's supposed to be. He keeps wanting to go out and every time he does something, it endangers his crew. Literally, there's a part in it where they tell him, like, if you continue on this journey, because he goes to the west when he probably should have gone east and would have got home quicker. They keep telling him, you're going to keep facing issues and you're going to keep getting your crew killed if you do not heed the gods. But he keeps trudging ahead and wanting to go on this journey. And so he pays the price for that by losing so many of his people in various different ways. And that's what it is. Every island is a different episode in a way of how he has to deal with his own, sense of morality and sense of belonging and love and loss. There's so many lessons in this and so many things that I think people can take away from it that are even connected to things that are happening in modern history, things that we can see. Like I see Nolan's hand working here to have a statement. This is a statement piece for sure, because he also made an interesting choice to use American dialect for all the actors, right? Even the British ones. There was Robert Pattinson right there using an American accent, which, he's had a lot of practice at. But it brings something different to this than we would see if it was the heightened, elevated British language that this type of film would normally be done as. And I think that's important because I heard Nolan mention that he actually wanted to get more to the emotionality of the language, and it surely pays off, because we're going through such a toiling journey and voyage and Odyssey. And when we're hearing these American dialects, Americans are very rooted and salt of the earth. There's something very connected to your body that guttural and very American retelling of this. And this is what I'm saying, like, the people that were critical of this had no idea that this has gone on for years. There have been so many productions and plays in the theater done of the Odyssey, and all of them are different because of these little intricacies. And that's why I said, like, we're missing a lot of culture and refinement in the viewing audience if this is what they're attached to, or if this is why they want to attack this film. The film does well in that, and like I said, being tied to that American language, it just makes it more emotionally raw when you finally get to those end moments. And like I said, I can't spoil this film, but it's worth it. Let me just say, those 3 hours fly by, and by the time you get there, you have that release, and it's like you know, I was in the theater and I was all of a sudden hit with emotion too, because I realized, like, I'm like, damn, there's been so much that's happened and so many characters that have built their life on the myth of Odysseus when he's been off going through all types of drama in himself. But they kept the hope alive that Odysseus was still alive and that he would come and take his rightful place as king. And of course, what happens, right? But so this is, you know, this is an interesting retelling of this story. And I think a lot of people need to just shut up and listen. Go in there and let the movie wash over you a couple times. I'm going to go back and watch it in a different format. I saw it in 4DX, but it's available in IMAX. It's available in 70 millimeter. It's something you need to witness in its full epic format. I believe IMAX was the original format, and that's probably the most close to what the director wanted you to feel in that moment. You know, sometimes the 70 millimeter is a little strange for me. Like, I saw Oppenheimer in 70 millimeter, and I just don't really enjoy like a square, open gate format for my films a lot of times, like, because it takes away something from something for me, you know, like I said, you got my money. You could take my money in any format because I'm going to go watch this and study it, you know. And like I said, there was a lot of celebrities that were cast in this film, but really they weren't in the film that much. So all the fervor that goes against this film is just ridiculous. And then I heard Matt Damon talk about how hard it was to be in this film. Like, this is one of the hardest jobs he's ever had to do. And as an actor, I can truly attest to that. They were very much going through everything that was happening in that story, and it was rough. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was a choice too, to make it as rough and as brutal as it was, because this wasn't a pretty era in our history of the world. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you really capture that essence in this film, and it kind of transfers you to this world, and it also allows you to drift into the fantasy of the whole thing, the trip to Hades. Like, you know, it was chilling, it was dark, it was very impressive, is what I'm going to say. It was impressive. So I rate this film very highly, and I think you all should go out and check it out too. I mean, I don't have to tell you already. There's people in my family, everybody's talking about going anyway. So this is kind of a no-brainer. But don't let these online critics and racists try to stop you from enjoying a film. You know, like, even for the people that are supposed to be listening to this type of commentary, you know, like, they really don't understand this story, is what it sounds like to me, if that's what they're really attacking, you know. And who thinks Elon Musk is a good film critic anyway? I wouldn't listen to many of his suggestions. He seems pretty lame. I'm not going to lie. But go see for yourself. That's the one thing I can give you. Go see it for yourself. But as somebody who has worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, I know how hard something like this is to be. And like, there's barely any CGI in the film. A lot of this stuff, if not all of it, was practical special effects, which is special in itself. So this might be Christopher Nolan's life work. I mean, I'm really wondering where he's going to go after this, because he's done some great stuff in his history of filmmaking. But go check out the film, The Odyssey. It's in theaters now. Faucette Media recommended. Anyway, let me know what you all think in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. If you want to watch more, please watch one of these videos down below. Make sure you hype the video. Hyping the video helps push the video in the algorithm. I appreciate you. This is Faucette Media.